It's time for ROTD Weekend. While you're listening to this, I am in Canada again. I am in Toronto this time, which is where I went to grad school. It's also where my son was born, although he's never been back since then. We moved when he was 9 months old. So I'm taking him back to show him his first home and to see some friends. My parents are also meeting up with us there. So it's going to be me and Marty and the kids, my parents, just taking Toronto by storm, you know? And I'm really excited. I love Toronto, and it's really giving me this like nostalgic, warm feeling like deep in the pit of my stomach. And I can't wait to be there again. And I also have that feeling because of a book that I just finished reading. I have to say, there is nothing that can make me feel that, like time and place and memory, like something that's set in the 1980s. It's so vivid to me, especially when it's done well, actually. So this book that I just read was incredible. I love it. It's called Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And there's a playlist that she's created to go along with it that you can get on Spotify. So I finished the book and just felt all these feels, and now I'm listening to the Spotify playlist as well. And I'm trying to figure out what I should read next, like what I should get to take on the plane. Maybe I'll find something at the airport. I feel like after that book, just about anything is going to be disappointing. I want to stay in this like cocoon of nostalgic feelings that the thought of going to Toronto is bringing, knowing that I'll be feeling that when I'm in Toronto, and having just read that book that's taking me back even further to the 1980s, that's making me feel it too. So I need to find something that really grabs all of that, you know? I just love that feeling. So I guess that wasn't very food related. I can say that in the book Atmosphere, there is a little bit of food. They eat some strawberry milkshakes with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the same time. That was fun. But yeah, it's not a book about food. It is about the space program and NASA in the 1980s and two women who were part of it. It's fiction though, so it's just really great. And now I need to find something else to read. I want to ask you for suggestions, and I will post in the Facebook group and you can leave them there. But I know that this isn't going live until after I'm almost finished my trip in Toronto. So you will not be able to help me for my trip, but you can help me for when I get back. I'll post in the Facebook group. That is the Recipe of the Day Facebook group on Facebook. And you guys can give me your book recommendations, you know, stuff that really takes us back to when we were younger, that time and place. I love it so much. So then, on the theme of books, I do not have a new interview for you this week because I'm traveling and things are crazy, but I have an interview from about a year ago that I did with an amazing author about a book that she'd written. This conversation is with Eve J. Chung about her book, Daughters of Shandong. I loved this book. I could not put it down. And it was just so deeply about family and sisters and survival. It's about their escape to Taiwan from communist China. And it's gripping and wonderful. So if you have not read it already, get your hand on a copy of Daughters of Shandong. And if you want to hear more about it first, listen to my conversation now with Eve. You're going to be convinced. I know it. J. Chung, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I am beyond excited to talk with you. So just a little bit that you don't know, that the listeners of the show know, is that I used to read voraciously, like 3-4 novels a week. And then with kids, sort of stopped, like 2 novels a year. And I started back up again a year ago. And I'm up to like 1 book a week. And so when your book came here, I was like, okay, I need to read this for work. That'll be my book. And I hope it's not hard. And like, I hope I could get through it in a week. I couldn't put it down. I'm obsessed with it. I think I told you when we were just talking a moment ago, like I even drew it out in the end. Like I didn't want it to end. I wanted to keep reading it. I cried so many times. Like it's beautiful. So congratulations. This is so
Thank
exciting.
you. Thank you so much. It's great. It's always great to hear when people have enjoyed it or connected to it in some way.
So the book is called Daughters of Shandong. Can you tell us what inspired the story of this book?
So this book is based on a true story. It is about my grandmother's escape from the communist revolution in China to Taiwan. So she had been left behind because at that time daughters were considered worthless. So she actually had three sisters around the turning point of the revolution. One died quite early because the situation was so bad that people didn't even think it was worth paying medical care for daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, not everyone. Obviously, there were people who were, I think, far more progressive. And I mean, as in any culture, there's people on either range. But in her family, they did not pay for medical care for girls. So when the revolution started, the rest of the family fled to Taiwan and left my great grandmother and the three remaining daughters behind. And they ended up having to make their own way through war-torn China to get to Taiwan to find the rest of the family.
That is amazing. And so how did you piece this together? So you had some connection with your grandmother. How did you learn of this story and figure out all the twists and turns?
So I actually interviewed my mom and my grandmother's sisters, and I was talking with quite a few people about our grandparents. I mean, I think just World War II being such a horrific force, there are so many people across different cultures who have grandparents that just suffered horrendously in the 40s and 50s. And a lot of them don't talk about it. So my grandmother never told me the details about it. I just knew she was left behind in China. And for the longest time, I thought she just got on a boat because there is a big harbor at Qingdao. So I didn't realize that by the time she needed to escape, the boat service was cut off. And she had to walk from rural China to Qingdao in the first place and travel 1,000 miles to Hong Kong. And yeah, it wasn't until 10 years after she passed away that I realized my grandmother was in Hong Kong. So I interviewed my mom and my uncles and my grandmother's remaining relatives, as well as relatives from other side of the family, not about my grandmother's story, but just about life during that war. And what I couldn't piece together, I filled in through research because there were quite a few good resources, including in English, that could help fill in some of the blanks.
Yeah, no, it's such a real feeling story. Like you feel like you're there while you're reading it. And then I feel like I learned so much about that time in China without like, it wasn't like being in a history class. It was just like surrounding me as I was reading. It's so beautifully done. Now, there are lots of themes in the book that I would like love to spend forever talking with you about sacrifice and motherhood, sisterhood, poverty, but food. I'm going to say, okay, so I told you that when I first started reading the book, I was a little nervous and I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure that I make note of everything where food is mentioned so that it'll make sense on this podcast. Okay, I'm going to hold up this book now. I don't know if you can see. It is dog-eared like everywhere, every time. And at some point I stopped, like obviously not every time they're eating, but anytime that it was like significant, like food was significant right here, I'm like, okay, I need to, and it was still so much. So was that something you were aware of as you were writing it, that food is such a huge theme?
I don't know if it was intentional, but my relationship with my grandmother was so food centric. And we always used to say, so all the children that were raised by my grandmother were just enormous. And I used to think that was just this funny quirk because she would just feed us just aggressively. So, for example, when I was little, she used to boil a whole chicken and take off all of the skin and make me eat that. And it wasn't till even now, it's actually now that I really understood that because she went through such an awful period of starvation, she was just always paranoid that it would happen again. So I remember, I just for reference, when I was 2, I was 40 pounds. So I was just this massive 2-year-old, and my cousin was 60 pounds because I think by the time we were born, the situation in Taiwan was good enough that food was fairly plentiful. But yeah, she was always preparing for it to go away. And she was also a very good cook. And so is my mom. And I always feel like generally speaking, the women in my family are very proud of me, but I think cooking is like one area where I often feel like I failed to properly learn how to do things as well as they have.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, it's so wonderful. Like I feel like yeah, so I think you talk about it in the book or possibly in the like notes at the end about the feeding of grandchildren and how plump everybody
Mhm.
was. And it's so true. As you said, people who grew up for like during the Depression or different times, and they're always worried about that happening again, hoarding.
Mhm.
And in that way, she's like
Mhm.
hoarding the food on your bodies essentially and keeping it there.
Yeah.
And there's also though, so there's a lot of that, like finding the food. And then anytime that there's like a celebration or something positive happens,
Mhm.
there is wonderful food. Like I know there's a scene when they get some money from somebody on the road when they're walking.
Mhm.
And the first thing they do is head to this market and are feasting on this food. And
Yeah.
you could almost like flip to any page and depending on what they're eating, know if it's like a good moment or a bad moment.
Yeah, that's true. I think for my family at least, and maybe a lot, food is how you celebrate, and it's something that just brings everybody together. And I think any new occasion, I remember telling my husband that part of at least Chinese culture, when you have a celebration, you need to order a lot of food because his whole point was like, I always over order. And I was like, that's part of the culture. You have to make sure there's like so much food because if people finish everything, it means you were stingy or there wasn't enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's still kind of how I celebrate things. I know when for all my book stuff, it was like, let's go to this restaurant, and I think, again, food is love. I think I say that in the book. Food is a form of love. Like when you love a person, you remember what they like to eat. You remember what they
Hmm.
don't like to eat. You go out of their way to make sure they have something that makes them happy. I mean, as parents too, it's like, oh, we have to go to this restaurant because so and so doesn't eat this item. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all part of love.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Food, love, connected, and how we show our love for each other. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. So, Eve, have you brought a recipe to tell us about today?
Yeah, I have. And I think in terms of food being love, I think food also bridges cultures. So I
Hmm.
brought a recipe that kind of bridges cultures. So I live in New York, and one of the things I love is the mixing of cultures. So now you kind of have these interesting fusion connections. I mean, most recently I heard of a Korean Serbian restaurant, and
Whoa.
I feel bad because I forget the name, but I'm sure if you Google Korean Serbian food, you'll find it. But my husband is half Korean. So I picked a dish that is technically a Korean dish, which I have either improved or ruined, depending on your point of view, by adding a Chinese twist to it. So it's called chicken and potato stew. In Korean, it's called Dakdoritang, which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, but it's a chicken and potato stew. And I wanted to learn something Korean. And then when I made it, I did adjust it to my family's taste because I think a lot of Korean dishes tend to be a little sweeter.
Hmm.
And my parents, I guess for Taiwan, it's not as common. So I know my parents like hate if meat is sweet. It like makes them angry. So
Oh,
I took the sugar out, but like if you want, you can put it back in. So I'll mention it, but it's an optional thing.
that's interesting, actually. The like sweet with like savory. I didn't grow up with
Mhm.
that either. So my family is, well, British and Ukrainian, but like the Ukrainian
Mhm.
side, you don't put like you would never put berry or apples on pork. Like there's just things like that
Mhm.
that you would just never
Yeah.
do. That's really common here. And I like it now, but it's still like, huh, interesting. Like it's just not my favorite ever. So yeah, it's probably cultural, right?
Oh, yeah, I love it because I grew up here. But again, yeah, maybe because if you don't like it and you see it all the time, like it just makes some, like my parents are like, no, it's terrible. And they've just never gotten used to it.
That's great. So where do you start with making this dish?
So this is a dish that is really forgiving. So it's pretty hard to mess up. If you want, you can actually just throw everything into an instant pot and just hit, I don't know, I think 15 minutes, whatever it is for poultry. Yeah, 15 minutes and you can program it. So the ingredients are the aromatics are garlic, ginger, and scallion, which I would say is like the Chinese Holy Trinity. Because I know for like, for example, Southern cooking, it's what, like onions, carrots,
Pepper.
and celery or something.
Yeah, I think bell pepper and celery, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like for Chinese cooking, the trinity is garlic, ginger, and scallions.
Love it.
So there's that. And I think if you're doing it on a stove, you can do it on like a any type of pot. I've done it in just like a stock pot too. That's actually kind of nice because it tends to bubble a lot. So you throw in the aromatics first and saute with whatever oil you want. You can use butter or vegetable oil. And then you kind of brown the chicken. And again, if you want to instant pot the whole thing, I've skipped this step and it's still been very good, but you can brown the chicken first. And I typically use chicken drumstick. But if you want it to be boneless, you can use chicken thigh. I wouldn't recommend breast because I feel like that kind of gets dry in a stew. If you want to be, at least the way my mom would do it, she has like this giant cleaver and she cuts the chicken drumsticks in half so the marrow goes into the soup. And so that's I prefer that way, but I know that sometimes like bits of bone get into the soup too if you do that.
Yeah.
So it's a personal choice.
I've never done that before, but it makes so much sense. So then when you're eating it, it's the thing that like if you're feeding it to your toddler, for instance, you're a little bit like, okay, be careful because there's bones in there, but they can be careful.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, the bone thing, at least from Chinese cooking, a lot of stuff has bones. And my husband is half Korean, but he was born and raised here. So I know he's not used to bones. So I know there's a lot of recipes that I just adjust because otherwise I get like complaints about the bones and it's just not worth the hassle.
So for this one, so if you were using the drumsticks, whether you've cleavered them in half or not, when it's served, it's still served with the bone in there. Like you're, and then do you pick that up with your fingers or would you use chopsticks or how do you?
You can use whatever. I think fingers are fine. And I know that I've done it with the chicken thigh. You would reduce the cooking time for that. So I would probably say you could probably even have the cooking time if you're not using anything with bones.
Yeah.
I'm I'm like lazier than my mom is. So I often don't bother to chop it. I just throw the drumsticks in and call it a day. But yeah, it's a pretty flexible recipe. You could substitute another meat as well. Just adjust the cooking time accordingly.
Okay, so you've browned the chicken maybe, and you have the aromatics in the pot with the chicken at this point?
Yes, with the chicken. So I usually add, or the recipe calls for potatoes and carrots. So any potato, I've used, again, any potato, like the Idaho potato or the russet potatoes. And then I've also used just like the more thin-skinned potatoes. I like the thin-skinned ones a little better, but again, any type of potato works well. You kind of chop them into, I would say, chunks that aren't too small because you don't want it to completely melt, but you want it to melt a little bit. So I would say like maybe the size of a saltine cracker, like the potatoes, in terms of like size, just like chunks like that. And again, adjusting depending on what you want. I actually take out the carrots because I don't really like carrots. And then maybe a yellow onion, a whole yellow onion, and then some people quarter it. You can just throw that into. And after that, so you have in the pot all the aromatics. I guess onion maybe is also an aromatic. I add that one later. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe because it's big. But yeah, so you have the chicken, the potatoes, the carrot, and the onions. And then depending on how much chicken you have, you would add soy sauce. The original recipe, I think, called for 1/4 of a cup, but I would look at the color of the stew. You don't want it to be black. That's very bad because that's going to be really salty. So I think the color of the stew should be about like a maple syrup color, maybe a little lighter. I know there's like different grades of maple syrup, and I know you said you're Canadian. So I would say like a light maple syrup. So you can always add more. So I would say like start slow, taste it, and then add more if you want to, because that's something you can always like add at the end and it won't make a difference.
True.
So the original recipe called for sugar, like just white sugar, which I took out, but I instead use mirin, which is a sweet cooking wine. And I pour in maybe about like 2 or 3 tablespoons of that. It doesn't really matter. It's also just, you can use it as you would any type of cooking wine, just like not too much, but you can, with the soy sauce, you can add more later too. And then the last part is the gochujang, which is this red Korean spicy paste.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And my kids are small, so unfortunately I have to omit that because they can't take spicy food at all. This is also to taste. I mean, you can can add a ton, you can add a little bit. I usually go with like 3 tablespoons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, not for the kids. And then you just let it simmer for maybe 30 minutes. So the original recipe has it uncovered. I cover it just to avoid the splatter, and it hasn't really made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But because if you leave it uncovered, you need to add maybe a cup of water or
Right.
as much to prevent it from drying out. So with the cover on, I add maybe like a quarter cup of water. But again, it's like something that you just watch. Like if it looks like it's drying out, add more.
So before this, the water step, the optional possible water step, was the only liquid in there the soy sauce and the mirin?
Yes.
Oh, so
Yes.
there's not very much liquid in there. The chicken, potatoes, and carrots, they're just like steaming almost in that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of water comes out from the vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say you definitely need to add at least a quarter cup of water.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the Instant Pot, I don't really add that much water to
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to end up being like very thick.
Nice.
But I know sometimes I've seen that it's too thick and I'll add water while it's simmering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so simmering for 30 minutes or so, and then what do you do?
At the end, you put on sesame oil, and you can also chop up fresh scallions and put that on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, after, what is it, the juices of the chicken, if you're using a drumstick, they should be clear. I usually just poke it and see. And once that's ready, you just use some sesame oil, and then you can serve it with rice or whatever. I've had it with noodles too.
So it goes like on a plate, rice, and then this on top, or in a bowl? Does it matter?
Yeah, usually I get a bowl of rice and I just put it on top. It's almost like a curry. So I would serve it like I would any type of curry because it's thick. And you can actually easily turn it into a curry if you wanted to replace the gochujang with curry powder. I've also done that before. I like this recipe because it's so flexible. And in the end, I mean, it's a chicken stew. So it'll usually be pretty good if you don't let it burn.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I have one more question about the sesame oil. So this is something that I think I've learned somewhat recently, but it's often used more as a finishing condiment as opposed to something to cook with, right?
Yeah, because I don't know if this is true. I was told it has a low smoke point. So if you add it in the pot, you lose a lot of the aroma. And I found things to taste better when I add it towards the end. So I usually leave it out, or I add it like very late in the cooking process.
And does it matter to you? I know I see sometimes at grocery stores things labeled sesame oil, and sometimes they're labeled toasted sesame oil. Are they the same thing? Do you know? You don't have to know.
I actually have no idea. So I am, and I don't know if this is a Taiwanese thing. So my family's from Taiwan, where when my parents were growing up, there were very few brands. And my parents use the same brand of sesame oil, which is a Japanese brand called Kadoya. And I've just never deviated. So I always buy Kadoya sesame oil. I think we always use Kikkoman soy sauce. I bought something else just because it was at Costco and my mom was like livid. And so I've been like afraid to buy anything else. She said something. She was like, the aroma is different from like but Costco has Kikkoman now too. I don't know if it's because people like my mom got angry because she loves Costco. But I use the same Taiwanese brands that my parents always used. And it's interesting because just a book note, I was looking at this Taiwanese children's book and they had a kitchen and I was like, those are all the same brands that we use. So
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Well, Eve, this has been amazing. I am so delighted to have got to talk with you. And I just want to share with people, because just before we started recording, you told me very exciting news about your book, that it was picked up by Hudson News. Is that right? So it's going to be...
Yes. But I think that might be over now because I know they had it for AAPI Heritage Month. They had a display with my book. So it was at most airports and also train stations.
Wow.
So I don't think the display is up, but I think the book is still there. I don't know where they put books after the display period, but I know that it's still at quite a few stores.
It's so exciting. The people, I mean, everybody, you should go to your favorite bookstore or Amazon or wherever you can and make sure you read this. It's wonderful. But also, if you just happen to be passing by one at some point, take a picture and tag us. Eve, can you let people know if they want to find you online or follow along or anything like that, where should they look for you?
So I only do Instagram in part because I was never a big social media person, but I started doing Instagram so I could connect with readers. So it's just eve.j. eve.chung.writes. So it's Eve J. Chung Writes, but separated with periods on Instagram. And I have a Facebook page, but I'm not as good on it. I'm trying to build that too. So, but slowly, but I'm most active on Instagram.
That's great. And everybody go and get Eve's book. You won't regret it. You will cry, though. Just be warned, you will cry. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Eve.
Thank you.
Right? You want to read it even more now. I know it. So that is Daughters of Shandong by Eve J. Chung. And yeah, also that stew, right? I love the Korean stew with more Taiwanese flavor profile going on. Such a great idea. Thank you so much, Eve. I loved your book and I loved our conversation. So now is when I usually tell you what I am cooking this week. And, we get back shortly after you are listening to this, but I do not yet have thoughts about what I'm going to be doing, which usually means it's going to be more of a coming up with ideas and doing preliminary testing more than it's going to be finishing things off, doing pictures and videos. And so that's kind of more experimental time. I can go with the flow and what feels right until something really inspires me and works really well enough that I want to tell you about it. So I don't know is the answer to that. I do know that while we're in Toronto, we are going for dinner at the top of the CN Tower, the 360 restaurant. It does a whole revolution from way up top. It has some really nice Canadian things on the menu. So I'm going to be eating some delicious food up there. And also we are staying in the Little Italy section of Toronto, also near Kensington Market. So there are so many great restaurants there. If you've never been to Toronto before, you need to go because the food is outstanding. The shows are great. The city is friendly. It's a beautiful place to be. Big city, happy Canada charm, So yeah, I'm going to be eating some great stuff at the CN Tower and also in Little Italy. So maybe I'll tell you about that when I get back. As to what is going live on the websites this week, things are going live even though I'm away. We have finally, the infamous steak bowls. These are the steak burrito bowls that I make for us literally every week that my kids are here. They love them because you can customize your own bowl. We use a flank steak that's sort of dry brined and well seasoned, and then I slap it on the grill. I usually cook 2 of them at the same time, so we have all this leftover sliced steak meat for putting into different things. My kids both really like that in quesadillas, quick burritos, a little bit on some rice or some salad. So we definitely get through that. Marty really likes it too. So this is our steak bowl recipe. It's very standard. It is the steak, lettuce, tomato, avocado, green onion, cilantro on usually brown rice is what I do. And then we crush tortilla chips over top. Some of us put sour cream or salsa on top. Some of us don't, but the tortilla chips are kind of salty and crispy. They go over top. But yeah, we do this all the time, and I've never shared it on the website before or with you. So I'm excited to finally do that. And then another grilling treat going on, my grilled boneless chicken thighs with a perfect chicken marinade. These are so good. I've been doing them, maybe also every week that my kids are here. It's just so easy to marinate them and then just put a whole grill full on there. And then we have lots of great chicken for dinner that night and for the days ahead. And the grill marks from this marinade end up really, really good because there's a little honey in there. So they brown really good when they hit the grill. Really great recipe. So the steak bowls are going live on Cook the Story on Monday and the chicken thighs on the Cookful on Monday as well. So definitely go and check those out. And then what am I telling you about on the show this week? I have got, those steak bowls and the grilled boneless chicken thighs and the marinade as well. And there are also some delicious quick pickles. If you've got cucumbers in your garden, this is a great way to use them. Or just if you want to have pickles with dinner or on a sandwich or something, but you don't have any, this is a very quick way to do that. And we're also doing some grilled beef ribs. And my favorite garlic butter recipe is also this week on the Recipe of the Day podcast. You can get all of the recipes that I'm talking about and the links to everything that I talked about today if you head to cookthestory.com/ROTD. Everything there is arranged by date. So for this episode, you are looking for the July 26th of 2025 episode for all the links that I mentioned today, the link to Eve's book, and also, well, to Atmosphere, the other book I was talking about, and the playlist on Spotify. All of that is there. cookthestory.com/ROTD, July 26th of 2025. And you can get all the other recipes that I've talked about over there as well. I want to say a big thank you to Eve for being such a great guest and for writing such a beautiful book. And I want to say a big thank you to all of you for listening. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.